Good evening, Dungeon Masters, I'm Baron Durop. Very few creatures are able to subtly influence the terrain around their lair to their own benefit. While dragons have some of the more notable regional effects in their toolkit, the Illithid Elder Brains and powerful Aboleths tick the Cthulhu-esque Eldritch Horror boxes with their regional effects on geopolitics. Their subtle influence reflects how these creatures reshape the environment to their advantage to further their goal of enslaving humanoids like cattle. The central hub of every Illithid hive is the Elder Brain, a massive, venerable Illithid whose mind has subsumed the rest of its body, as well as the brains of other fallen Illithid, so as to achieve an enlightened state. As a result, these Elder Brains serve as the ultimate leadership roles in the Illithid hive, much like some kind of god king. Of course, this doesn't mean that the Elder Brain is without responsibility. First and foremost among these responsibilities is to find cattle and feed the children. And an Elder Brain's regional effects reinforces these goals. All creatures within a few miles of the Elder Brain constantly feel as if they're being followed and watched. Even unintelligent wildlife becomes paranoid of something lurking and following. Since Illithid lairs are typically subterranean, the Elder Brain has an interesting opportunity when it comes to selecting a hive location. The ideal Illithid lair is an underground cave network complete with aquifer systems under a rocky hill or mountain so as to make approaching the lair difficult. This aquifer network would ideally be surrounded by farmland prairies, which would use that aquifer system and the streams that feed it for irrigation. In this geographical position, the Elder Brain can subtly influence the populations of multiple nearby villages and towns at the same time. The constant paranoia of the inhabitants of these towns sets the stage for the Illithid's next phase of infiltration. When everyone is paranoid they're being watched and followed, it only makes sense they wouldn't trust anything their neighbors report either. Trusting anything is just a foolish way to get set up for kidnap. Utilizing this imbued lack of trust, Illithid lieutenants would easily be able to travel to the surface, kidnap a few villagers undetected, and force the kidnapped villagers into thraldom. Nobody will come looking for them as well because, well, that's how they get you. Once branded as chattel and returned to the surface, these humanoids begin the second phase of Illithid infiltration proper. As the thralls gain positions of authority within their communities thanks to the psychic influence of the Elder Brain itself, the constant paranoia the community once suffered would begin to subside. The various thralls in their newfound leadership roles get to take credit for eliminating the perceived stalking and risk of kidnap. Once the Elder Brain is in control of each village's authority system, it will pull the levers of society and shift the culture to the Illithid's benefit. By enthralling a noble's child, a few priests, a constable, a judge, and a village chieftain into slaves, Elder Brains can reshape the culture of these communities, twisting them into Illithid cattle without even realizing what they've become. These communities would happily offer up their elderly, criminals, outsiders, babies with sorcery powers, or any other group the major culture decides to pick on. Elder Brains subjugating a community of wood elves, for example, would have a very easy time changing the laws so that all hill dwarves in an adjacent foothill range who wander into the area are arrested on sight, only to be offered to the Illithid as sacrifice moments later. By the way, if you're looking for unique, unusual monsters to throw at your players, then this video's sponsor, Roll for Combat, has an upcoming Kickstarter just for you. The release will feature all new bestiaries and player ancestries with tons of new monsters, but the real thing to look out for is the all-new Battle Zoo Eldamon Compendium and its supplemental Eldamon Battles non-collectible card game. Heavily influenced by a certain anime series where monsters are captured and trained for battle, the new Eldamon rule set allows you to befriend over 160 unique Eldamon with a stretch goal totaling 240 of them. Battle Zoo Eldamon features two new classes, the Eldamon Trainer and Elemental Avatar, and all of this is written for both Pathfinder 2nd Edition and 5th Edition D&D. The new card game, Eldamon Battles, also integrates directly into your tabletop RPG for even more Eldamon excitement. The entire Eldamon system is very flexible, and even though it's designed for PF2E and D&D 5e, it's easily adapted to just about any other tabletop role-playing game. The Kickstarter release will also include other Eldamon goodies like plushies, minis, dice, and more. For information about the July 26th release, or to learn more about these Eldamon monsters, check out the links in the description. Alright, now back to the video. Whereas the Illithids and their Elder Brain overlords dominate an entire region using a wide net of paranoia, their catfish cephalopod nemesis, the Aboleth, have a much more surgical influence on their surrounding region. While Aboleths might have a more narrow range of effect, this actually suits them just fine. Most towns aren't much larger than a mile or two at their widest dimension anyway. Therefore, the prime target for an Aboleth's lair are the cisterns, sewers, and aqueducts of a large port city it can infiltrate from deeper water. As a result, the Aboleth's regional effects serve in both offensive and defensive natures as well. The slimy, wet surfaces the Aboleth's presence imbues causes the city's entire sewer system to become untraversable to any surface dwellers which need solid ground to walk on. But it also serves as a lubricated piping system for the Aboleth to swim around inside of, like they were moving through a bank's drive-through vacuum tube. As for domination strategies, once the Aboleth has set up shop, it would target anyone who comes skulking around a sewer drain, charm them, and send them off to do their bidding. Keep in mind, this creature can attempt to charm whatever is in eyeshot of enslaved thralls as well. The Aboleth can cause its enslaved subjects to seek out other notable creatures living in the city, like clergy or nobility, apparate once it has a private audience, and further add to its enslaved arsenal in an ever-expanding web of authority. A simple beggar can gain private audience with a monk, who in turn can give private audience to a high priest, who can in turn gain audience with a hierophant or a bishop. In just a matter of 3 or so enthrallments, the Aboleth can dominate an entire vertical of any particular cultural authority. Once under the Aboleth's control, a task only taking mere days, the politics of the town will be retooled to serve the Aboleth's liking. It's much easier to raise an army against a nearby Illithid hive when you can command the town's princes and bishops to justify the war for you. In a nutshell, the subtle regional effects of these slimy, brain-dominating creatures are terribly insidious. Once they latch onto a population, it's almost impossible to figure out what's causing such rampant, antisocial behavior without succumbing to these creatures yourself. Anyone of notable threat is a top-tier candidate for enthrallment or enslavement, and will be pressed into the service of these creatures before they're even given an opportunity to know something is out of place. If you'd like to help me make more content like this in the future, please consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a channel member. Thanks for watching, Dungeon Masters, and until next time, good night.